Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig, episode 18. I'm here with Reza as
Hi,
usual.
Craig.
Hi Reza.
How are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
That's good. And we have a special guest today, Bear. Hello Bear.
Hello Craig. Hello Reza.
Hi, Bear.
How are you both today?
Very well. Very well.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Nice to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. Bear is a colleague of ours. She works together with us at the British Council. She has helped to write course books and she lives also in Valencia. So it's lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Because this is a special episode, I think today we'll talk a little about the present perfect, which Reza and I talked about in episode 5. I think it was. If you go back to episode 5, you can hear Reza and I comparing the present perfect with past simple. But today we're going to try and go more profundamente. We're going to go to the meat and potatoes, as they say in English, the carne y patatas of the present perfect.
Do you really say that? Never heard that in my life, just for the record.
Al grano.
Exactly, that's
grano.
better. Yeah.
So, where should we start? Should we start with the form, present perfect, for listeners who aren't sure how to make the present perfect?
I think that's quite a good starting point. And I think what we find usually in class is that students don't actually have a problem with the form because it's very similar to the form in Spanish. But there is a problem with the execution. In other words, how to use this particular tense in English. So I think that's a good starting point. Let's start off by seeing how you actually build the present perfect simple.
Well, I know it's with have or has.
That's right. And what's the next bit after have or has?
Well, if it's present perfect simple, the past participle.
That's right. And that's for... I think that's if you've got your list of irregular verbs.
Which you should have in front of you.
Exactly. That will be your second or third column. Reza, what is it?
Second or third column. Are you counting the subject?
No,
Okay.
Just the infinitive. So,
Okay.
for example, go, went, gone.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So what's the past participle?
In the third column.
Yeah, third column. So past participle.
So have or has and the past participle. Examples: I have been to Rome.
Okay.
Have you been to Rome?
No, I haven't.
So that's the negative. Reza hasn't. He hasn't been to Rome.
I have. I've been to Rome.
Oh?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
It was okay. It wasn't brilliant because the weather was really bad. But I've been.
Good. Okay.
I slipped in a past simple there. As you have to.
That's very common.
Once you get specific.
I have been to Rome. When did you go?
Oh, that's true, and that's a problem for Spanish speakers, especially if you're translating from Spanish.
Yeah.
So I was thinking. I've been thinking. About
Good one.
Continuous. Present perfect continuous.
It's a bit adventurous
Whoa,
there.
let's take it
slowly.
Take it slowly. The difference in use between the Spanish pretérito perfecto and the English present perfect. Now, I don't know if you agree, but my students tend to overuse the present perfect in English when they'd say something like, as I've said before, which in Spanish you'd say he dicho antes. But then, is that wrong in English to say that? As I've said.
I think it is wrong. I mean, my students in class, and this is quite a high-level class, I still get students saying, what has she said?
Exactly.
And you think, no, I'm not saying it now. I've stopped saying it. When I said it was a few moments ago, so the action's finished.
Past simple.
So it should be past simple.
What did she say?
What did she say? But the problem is, if you're thinking in Spanish and translating, that's the kind of mistake, Craig, that students and you sometimes make.
In Spanish? yeah, I do. I overuse. Have you noticed that?
I certainly have.
Not that we speak much in Spanish
No, but
together.
I've heard you say it.
But I overuse. Do you know why? I'm not very sure of my Spanish past simple verbs. I don't really know them well, and it's easier for me to use the pretérito perfecto when I'm speaking about the past than to choose the past tense of a Spanish verb.
I know this isn't anything connected to present perfect really, but when you do make a mistake, for example, with the present perfect, would you like somebody to correct you
Yes.
all the time?
Yeah, I can't promise I'll auto-correct. I can't promise
Okay.
I'll take it on board because
Okay.
I know I've got these ingrained errors. I just say ingrained errors. Errores.
Adquiridos, problema, yeah.
And it's very difficult for me to correct the bad Spanish I've been speaking
Yeah,
for years.
yeah.
But no, I do like it when people correct
Okay,
me.
I'll bear that in mind.
Thank you. Please do.
I'll take it into account for next time when I hear you make a present perfect mistake.
We should-
Pretérito perfecto, error.
We should speak more in Spanish.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing. Also, I've got some examples here of when you'd use pretérito perfecto and in English past simple. For example, ha llegado hace un rato.
Oh, yeah.
She arrived a little while ago.
That's a tricky one.
That's not really tricky though when you think about it, because ago is a word which is 99.9 of the time going to go with the past simple. So a good thing to remember is just to think, okay, forget my Spanish, ago, past simple.
Yeah.
Forget the
Yeah.
translation.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the problem. The moment you begin translating from Spanish into English with this present perfect, you're gonna have problems.
Exactly. Another example, cuando lo he visto, no he podido creerlo. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It has to be past simple.
Yeah,
at least, doesn't it?
definitely. Yeah, because you stopped seeing it. You saw it once in the past.
Okay, good point. Moving on, Reza, should we speak a bit about time expressions?
With the present perfect. Yeah.
The present perfect.
So typical words which go with the present perfect are still, already, just, and yet. For example, what could I say? I've already visited Cuba, but I want to visit again a second time in the future because I liked it so much. I've already visited Cuba. So already is going there with the present perfect. I visited, and it means it's done. It's finished. It's an action which has been done. It was a positive sentence. What about a negative? I could say, I haven't visited Argentina yet, but I plan to go soon. I haven't visited Argentina yet. Haven't visited yet. So yet goes with present perfect for a negative, usually.
And yet would be aún
Oh,
or todavía.
Could be either, couldn't it?
Could be either.
In that case, it could be either.
All right.
Bea, I've got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Have you visited Latin America yet, or are you waiting for a
I
future opportunity?
have. No, I went to Latin America about 10 years ago.
Where did you go?
I went to Honduras
Mm.
and I
Wow.
went to Nicaragua as
Oh,
well. Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, it wasn't lovely at the time because there was a war, so it wasn't.
Really?
It was actually, I said 10 years ago. Check this one out. It was when the Sandinistas were around.
And is that when you went?
Yeah, to cover. Yes. To do some.
Wow.
I went with somebody who was a press photographer.
So you've been in a war zone?
I have.
Wow.
Was it, dangerous when you were there? Did you
No,
were
well, it
in
was
places-
dangerous. I think there was always a risk of something happening.
But you weren't in the thick
We
of
weren't
the-
in the thick of things. No, but it was. But yes, so I have, Reza.
Oh, wow.
I have been to Latin America.
Uh-huh.
Have you
You've
been-
already been.
I've already
Okay.
been.
Have you been to Latin America?
Just Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Just Cuba, yeah.
Did you like it?
I really loved it, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to go back.
Okay.
I'd love to go back, yeah. Did you notice that when I asked Bea the question, I also used yet? So that was the final part. So we had already is usually positive,
Uh-huh.
and yet is usually negative or a question, usually. However,
What about still?
Oof, yes.
well, hold on. I'll get
sorry.
on to still, but there's still more to say about already, and a few other
You
things.
mean you still haven't finished?
I still haven't finished.
He hasn't
Not
start-
yet.
He hasn't started yet.
Not yet.
Feels like he's already said it 5 times.
Yeah, probably. But already's all of these words can be a bit tricky. The basic rules are easy. I said already is positive. I've already visited Cuba. However, you can use already in a question. Craig, you've traveled a lot around Latin America. I know you've already visited Argentina, Chile, and Cuba, but have you already visited Peru? I can't remember.
No, I haven't been to Peru yet.
So I asked you a question there with already, not yet, because I kind of expect the answer to be yes, or it wouldn't surprise me if you said yes. In that case, you can use already in a question in a present perfect.
Okay.
Like, imagine you've been eating your dinner. You started a minute ago. I come back and all the food's gone, and I say, "Have you already finished?"
Have you finished already?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you could say
I'm
that.
surprised.
Is there a similar way of saying that in Spanish that would help the listeners to translate it? Or
Would it be ya? Ya has
Ya.
terminado?
Yeah, I think the position would be important. So you say, ¿Ya has acabado? ¿Ya has terminado? And I think the intonation in Spanish would carry the meaning that Reza was explaining.
And also would
just
work
now.
in the negative. No has acabado ya?
Would you say that? ¿No has acabado ya? No.
No?
I don't think so. ¿No has acabado ya? I think you said, ¿no has acabado todavía?
Todavía.
Yeah, I don't think you'd use ya
todavía.
there.
No has
Don't
acabado
ask me
todavía.
why, but it doesn't
Yeah.
sound good.
Although
You see, you do have problems with your present perfect, your pretérito perfecto in Spanish.
I do. I have problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
You-
Sort them out.
well, you can use yet with a negative question in English. Haven't you finished yet? You can do it in English, okay.
That's true.
Yeah. I noticed that you've been using already in different positions. Yes, listeners, did you notice that already it normally goes before the past participle? I've already visited Cuba.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
it can go at the
important.
end, can't
Yeah,
it?
but I think that's a good point. The position is important as well,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I visited Cuba already. It's also possible.
Yeah.
Which one would you say emphasizes already more? If you put it before the past participle or at the end of the clause?
Can you give me 2 examples? Because sometimes I can see it better if you give me the same example
Okay.
with the already in different positions.
Well, with adverbs of
What about-
with many of these expressions, the closer it is to the beginning of the sentence, the more emphasis it has.
What about this? We've already been talking for 10 minutes. And what about we've already been talking for 10 minutes, and we've been talking for 10 minutes already. Which one would you say
I would
emphasizes
go with
already
it.
more?
I don't know about emphasis, but it would sound more natural to me to have it at the beginning. It just doesn't sound natural. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
So I don't know if it's a question of emphasis or whether
Yeah. Although it's
it.
not wrong to put it at the end, though, is it? At the end of the clause.
we've been talking for 5 minutes already. I'm not
We've been
sure
talking
if it's
for
wrong.
5
That's a
minutes
really good
already.
question.
No,
Reza.
I would say that. I would say that, but I agree that it's more common to put it earlier on in the sentence. Yeah, I've already been. Yeah.
Maybe it's a question of spoken and written English. Maybe it's a little bit more common to write already at the end, or in
I'm
something.
not sure. I don't know. I mean, it might be.
Yeah.
I'd just stick to sort of not putting it at the end and just keeping it where we thought it might be at the beginning.
Anyway, tell us about still,
Still.
because you still haven't told us about still.
We're still waiting.
We're still waiting.
Okay, well, still, I think, is a really tricky word for Spanish people.
Come on already.
I've been doing the easy stuff first. It gets harder because I think still is particularly tricky if you're Spanish. Well, it's tricky for anybody. But the fact is, I only remember this when I study it myself, that we use still with the present perfect, but only when it's negative or a negative question. Think about it. We don't use still as a positive in present perfect.
But
You
would
can't
with-
say, have you still finished your homework? No, you can't
But
say
with
that.
you would with other tenses, for
You
example,
would.
with present
Yes,
continuous, I'm
exactly.
still waiting.
Yeah.
Exactly, I said with present perfect.
Present perfect.
Yeah, that's
present
really
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
That's an important point.
Yeah, you can't say, are you still doing your homework? Sure. But with present perfect, still is only negative or a negative question.
Yeah, you're right.
For example, Craig. Craig still hasn't visited Disneyland, though I think he might in the future. It's a dream that he has. Isn't that right, Craig?
Yeah, I've always wanted to see Mickey Mouse, so I'm saving up my money
So Craig still
to,
hasn't visited.
to go to Disneyland.
He still hasn't visited. Oh no, this is
You won't let me forget that.
I won't let you forget Mickey Mouse ever.
Is it one of your fantasies?
No, it came up in
I exaggerated
okay,
a bit.
okay.
It's kind of fun.
Okay.
I go out of my way to think up. I think
up.
up an example in advance always about Disneyland.
Yeah.
Very clever.
But you could say Craig hasn't visited Disneyland yet. It's the same as Craig still hasn't visited. Craig still hasn't visited Disneyland is the same as Craig hasn't visited Disneyland yet.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So still as a negative means the same as yet as a negative.
That's important to know.
Still can also be used as in a negative question. For example, a parent might say to their son or daughter, "Have you still not tidied your room?
Mm-hmm.
Have you still not tidied your room? I asked you 1 hour ago to do it, but you haven't done it yet." So a negative question, have you still not tidied your room?
I mean, that's a really good example, and I think it would be important, it would be very good if you could actually emphasise the still.
Mm-hmm.
Have you still not finished your homework?
Yeah.
Because if you say, "Have you still not finished your homework?" it doesn't mean much.
I'm still waiting for...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use still in that particular sentence, give it a bit of emphasis.
Give it more.
Exactly.
More
a bit
power,
of drama.
More power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've
Power to still.
Power to still. On the anything else, Reza?
Well, just about the word still, then that it's added to give emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
You still haven't done it? I asked you 2 hours ago, you haven't. Or Craig still hasn't visited Disneyland. I'm surprised because he's so obsessed with Mickey Mouse. So, still hasn't visited after all this time? It's for emphasis or surprise.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for Reza to stop mentioning Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
And I still don't understand what's going on.
On the subject, before we leave time expressions, so we've said that since and for often go together with present perfect. Still, yet, and already we've just explained. Any other thoughts on time expressions? I've got here ever and never.
Well, I was going to talk about just because it's so common.
Just and recently, yeah.
Yeah, well, just with present perfect is very common in English. The thing is, as far as I know, it's completely different in Spanish. For example, if I said to you, Pete was here a minute ago, but now he isn't here. He's just gone.
He's just gone. He's
He's
left.
just gone.
Yeah.
In Spanish, he's just gone, I think would be acabo de ir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd say, "Pete se acaba de ir."
Se acaba de ir.
Se acaba de.
Definitely not present perfect in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. So just with present perfect tends to be acabar de in Spanish, so it's completely different.
And it's very common. I've just finished. I've just had dinner. I've just had a coffee.
Yep.
Yeah, he's just been here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, so far, I've had 3 cups of coffee so far. Would be
you
hasta
say,
ahora.
yeah, so the same as already?
Yeah.
So could we say that
Right.
so far
Yeah.
and already are more or less, they have the same meaning?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe so far is more common in informal register.
Right.
So when you're speaking informally.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't given me any homework so far.
He hasn't done. Yeah, he hasn't done any writing so far this term.
So it could mean yet as well. It could mean already or
Yeah,
yet.
maybe that's what it
negative.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, either.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't done any homework so far. Means
Would
yet.
be in Spanish todavía.
Hasta ahora no he hecho,
Hasta ahora
no he hecho ningún trabajo, ningún deber.
Okay.
From your example sentences, it seems to be that so far either goes at the beginning or the end of the clause, not in the middle.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas already goes in the middle or can go in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on, I think it's important quickly to discuss the difference between present perfect simple and present perfect continuous. Reza, how long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for 20 years.
I can beat that. I've been teaching for 25 years
Wow.
at the British Council.
I've been teaching for 20, so between us we've got 65 years experience.
Yeah.
We have a pension.
That's really scary. That's really scary. So yeah, present perfect continuous, I've been teaching for 20 years. I've taught in Spain, France, Thailand and the UK. So how would you explain why I chose present perfect simple I've taught in different countries, and I've been teaching for 20 years or 25 years.
Tricky question.
Haha.
But you have the answer.
I don't know.
Just feel to jump
after
in
20
at
years.
any point.
After 20, 25 years, we should have the answer, shouldn't we?
I think I have the answer.
Okay, Bea, over
Okay,
to me. Over to Bea.
Well, your first question, how long have you been teaching? It's because, I mean, for example, I'm going to ask Reza the question again. How long have you been teaching English? My first question is, are you a teacher now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you teach English in the past?
I did, yes.
Okay, so you began teaching in the past and you continue to be a teacher.
Right.
So one thing we could say is that the present perfect continuous is to talk about the duration, the length of an activity which began in the past and is true or continues up until the present.
And that's that common theme, that siempre hay un enlace entre el pasado y el presente, or the present perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the present perfect continuous, it would be fair to say, is for something that began in the past and continues to be in the present. So for example, how long have you been living in Valencia?
I've been living in Valencia for 18 years nearly.
Okay, so you live in Valencia now, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And when did you come to Valencia?
I came to Valencia in 1997.
Okay, so since 1997 until right now, you began living and you continue to live, so that's why I'm asking you the question in the present perfect continuous.
Right. And as far as the present perfect simple is concerned, and see if you agree, when it's repeated individual things that happen from the past until now, that's when you'd use the present perfect simple. For example, I could say that Valencia Football Club have been playing well.
Mm-hmm.
They have won 6 games this season.
I think that's a different question though, because
Is
you've
it?
actually said the number. When you use a number,
I've taught in many countries.
okay, that's personal experience.
Right.
Without a time reference, but the one you gave about Valencia, so for example, I've written 3 letters today. I mean, you're using the present perfect because you're actually mentioning a number.
A number.
Not the duration of an activity, but the number.
So the present perfect continuous, the focus is on an activity. In the present perfect simple, it could be on the experience you've had over a period of time, or a number of things that have happened, which could also be used
Exactly.
with many. For example, I've lived in many different
Exactly.
places.
But again, I think the important thing is that it's an experience without a time reference.
Sounds good. That sounds good to me.
So present perfect continuous seems to focus on the fact that there's a duration involved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It
think
do-
the focus is on the activity, the duration of the activity, as opposed to the activity itself.
It doesn't matter though whether it's a long time or not. It doesn't have to be a long time. For example, you could say, I have lived in America, and maybe you lived there for 40 years, which is a long time, but it can be present perfect simple, just because you've had that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in America.
But I think when you're comparing with that example with lived, when you compare the simple and the continuous, I've lived here for 16 years, I've been living here for 16 years. I think when you choose the continuous, there is that temporary idea behind it.
I think what we've got.
And when present with present perfect simple, it has the idea of more permanence.
But you've got 3. I mean, the example there with live, study, and work. Those 3 verbs are each interchangeable, so you can use them with the present perfect simple or the continuous.
With the same meaning.
The same meaning. So I can say to you, I've lived in Valencia for 20 years, or I've been living in Valencia for 20 years. I've worked at the British Council for 25 years. I've been working in Valencia. Okay, so with live and work, they're interchangeable, but not with other verbs.
Okay.
But I would say there's a slight difference of focus,
Okay.
although they are interchangeable. If you say, I've lived in Valencia for 15 years, present perfect simple, you're focusing on the fact that 15 years have been completed. Whereas I've been living in Valencia for 15 years. Okay, 15 years are over, but you're living here now, and you're
And there's
continuing in
perhaps
the
that
future,
idea
and
of
there's going to be more
continuality.
slight nuance of difference.
Okay.
But it's definitely not a time thing. It's definitely not más corto continuous or más largo
No.
present simple.
No,
present.
that's
Let me throw two more examples at you. I've been painting the house. I've painted the house.
that's an interesting one. If Reza says to me, "I've been painting the house,"
I doubt it very much.
we could doubt it, but let's give him the benefit of
More
the
like
doubt.
I've had the house painted.
But if I say to you, Craig, Reza's been painting the house,
Mhm.
what evidence do I have when I look at him that this might be the case?
Paint in his hair, paint on his glasses, paint on his clothes, and a messy flat.
Absolutely. Okay, so, and if I say to you, Reza's painted his house
It looks lovely.
because he's finished it.
He's finished
Yeah.
it. Hmm.
I would say with the present perfect continuous, I may or may not have finished. It's not
True,
clear.
yeah.
He has been painting and he hasn't finished, or he has been painting and he's just finished.
We don't
Either
know,
are
do
possible.
we?
Yeah.
But either way, I think, we've got evidence that you've been doing something.
Yeah. It's up to more or less now. You've got evidence
Sorry.
that it's up to now, or more or less now, or up to more or less
Exactly.
recently.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
present
yeah, yeah.
perfect continuous.
Mhm.
Yeah. Up to recently or now. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about this present perfect simple, present perfect continuous?
Should we have a look at some
Comparison.
translations into Spanish? So,
Okay.
for example, if I say to you,
Are you going to test my Spanish now?
yeah, I think that's a really okay, Craig. Your first question, okay, is
For 5 points.
no. We'll give you 1 point because I'm not
Easy
feeling very
ones.
generous. Exactly, Craig. How would you say in Spanish? I've been living in Valencia for 20 years.
Llevo 20 años viviendo en Valencia.
Or
Ha sido 20 años.
oh no, Reza. What do you think?
Vivo aquí desde hace 20 años.
Very good.
2 points. I want 2 points.
You
1
want
point
2
to
points.
Reza. 1 point to
Okay.
Reza. But I have got down here in my notes that very often you'd say llevo when in English you would use present perfect continuous.
Yes.
I've been looking for the dog for 2 days. Llevo
Yeah.
2 días buscando el perro.
Yeah.
And how did you
He was very good.
What did you say?
Vivo aquí desde hace 20 años.
Vivo aquí desde hace 20 años. I've been living here.
Completely
And
different
yeah,
structure.
completely
English.
different, and that's what happens if you have a student who thinks in Spanish and says what Rez has just said. Then the English translation would be, I live here during 20 years.
Which I hear very often.
Oh
It's
yes,
completely
or
wrong.
since 20 years ago.
Or science.
Or science. Do you mean since, Craig?
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah. How did you like his biscuits? They're hideous. Absolutely. Can't believe it.
We've just discovered that Bear doesn't like fig rolls. I can't believe
I
it.
thought I would give him. I said I haven't ever tried a fig roll, and it's the first and last time. What a disgusting. But just taken a nibble.
Son galletas de higo.
Son asquerosas, vamos.
It's a very British thing, isn't it? A fig roll is very
You-
British.
you can
No,
have
I've
mine.
Yeah.
I've never eaten a
Yeah.
fig roll in my life
Really?
until I met you.
Oh, really?
Really?
What about,
Really?
do you know a similar biscuit called Garibaldi? Have you
Oh,
ever
yeah,
had
yeah,
Garibaldi?
Garibaldi.
I love them
It is.
too.
Oh,
wow.
God,
Like
you're such-
cardboard
Oh.
with dead flies.
Exactly.
I associate those biscuits with old people.
Yeah, my nan. My
Exactly.
Nan always
Exactly, I like them.
had Garibaldi's.
You wouldn't think that Reza was only 25, would you?
34.
He's had a hard life.
Exactly.
all
With
these
his
fig
fig
rolls.
rolls. Oh, God.
They do age you.
They do.
Anyway, shall we wrap this up?
Yep. Good idea.
Thank you very much, Bea, for coming on this episode, and thank you
Pleasure.
to Reza.
Pleasure. Nice to have
Thanks,
been
Ben.
here.
Have another fig roll.
No, thank you. They're all yours.
We'll see
All
you.
Reza's.
We'll see you in the next episode. The music in this podcast is by Puedes. The track is called See You Later, licensed by Creative Commons under a BY NC license at ccmixter.org.